Welcome to the BasePath podcast brought to you by New England Baseball Journal. I'm your host, Dan Guttenplan. Today's guest is Austin Prep baseball coach John Pollard. Coach Pollard has led one of New England's top programs at any level during his run as head coach. After the 2020 season that they lost due to the pandemic, Pollard has led Austin Prep to the following records by season: 19-2 in 2021, 25-0 in 2022, 18-4 last year in their first year as a NEPSAC program, and this year they are undefeated at 17-0. Coach, thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Dan. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to have you guys undefeated this late in the season, because we had you on 2 years ago after you guys won the D3 championship in MIAA, and that was an undefeated season too. What's it been like? How does it compare going undefeated against NEPSAC schools versus the MIAA schools that you faced in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievable experience, obviously, that goes without saying. It's really great for the program in terms of being able to go on a really good run, both in the MIA and within the NEPSAC. And it's really good to bridge those two kind of like generations, for the most part, of Austin Prep players. Though we do have some guys on the team, some of our seniors have been part of both runs, which is incredibly impressive for one high school baseball career to have those two runs. Yeah,
you were saying that. So you had a 27-game winning streak back then in 2022, spanning 2 seasons actually. I guess it went into 2023, and then this year now it's a 29-game winning streak. It's unbelievable. We did a cover story with you guys earlier this season, just on kind of that transition to becoming a prep program. What are your biggest takeaways from that experience? Maybe some things you didn't expect in that transition.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's been a tremendous transition. We're very much still in the camp that it was the right move for our school, not just our baseball program. We appreciate the teams that we're playing against, the programs, and the academic standards of all of our opponents. That's exactly where we want to be.
Yeah. And one of the challenges that we talked about, a couple of the challenges, scheduling has been a bit of a challenge just because you're not in a conference yet. And you would like to be, from what you said during our interview for the cover story. How will that process play out this offseason? I know that last year you had applied for a conference, didn't gain acceptance. And they can get a little tight because a lot of them have even numbers of teams, and they kind of set up a tournament structure. What do you think that will look like this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, we're always receptive to joining a conference. There are pros and cons to being in a conference and pros and cons to not being in a conference. Where we are currently without being in a conference, the greatest pro is we can go get everyone that we want on our schedule. So we're not forced to play anybody, and I think that's why we have such a demanding schedule. We actually just got back late Saturday night from a doubleheader out in New York where we played the Stony Brook School. Great series, great opportunity to get out there and compete, and that's kind of the blessing within not being in a conference. However, this week we don't have any games because most teams are in their conference playoffs, and we are not in a conference, which we certainly would love to be taking part in a playoff this week.
Yeah. Have you found that the coaches in the conferences, is it kind of a exclusive fraternity? Like, are they guarding, we want to keep it the way that it's always been is that the approach?
I wouldn't say that, and certainly not in like a pessimistic way. I don't think anybody's deliberately working against us. I think, we're the new kids on the block, and it's bigger than baseball. It's our school, it's our athletic program, and we are certainly in a position where we need to prove ourselves. And I think based on the feedback we've had as an athletic department, not just a baseball school, I think we've made a pretty good first impression. We've built some really good relationships. We're beginning to have some rivalries across the board with other schools, and they have to do what's right for their conference. I think in terms of baseball, you got to learn who I am. You need to learn who the program is, how we conduct ourselves, and are we going to be good for your league? Because it's not just what's best for Austin Prep. Back when we were an MIA school, we really embraced the opportunity to be part of the CCL. Those schools, like, we all knew our successes were each other's successes and our failures were each other's failures. So we worked really well together, and we want to be a great league mate to wherever we do end up in the future, and have those schools elevate us and us to elevate the league.
Right. And you said, you got to prove yourself. Well, you guys are 35-4 since making the transition to NEPSAC baseball. What have been some of the, what's kind of the team's identity this year? I know you guys have had great pitching. You've got a couple guys hitting over 500. I saw Jake Herring's like up around 540. Obviously, Evan Ventura, very good on the mound. What's kind of been the identity of the team so far?
So, I mean, there's the baseball identity, and Jake is having an unbelievable season. I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to find someone having a better offensive and defensive season than Jake. Yes, his average jumps off the chart, but his stolen bases, the presence, the disruption he causes, he's deep in at bats all the time, grinding at bats. He's got a tremendous eye. He is an elite level of speed. And we're really blessed to have him in that leadoff spot to set the tone. As he goes, we go. In terms of our pitching, it's deep. You know, we have, I think, 11 POs on the team, and Evan Ventura has been great for us the last 2 years. We added Lucas Rondo this year, and he is a bona fide ace. The bigger the moment, the better he is. I mean, it's like every start he has, it's the 7th inning. We're looking at no runs, no hits, and he was able to secure the perfect game 2-3 weeks ago. So he has been absolutely tremendous leading the way for us. And then, you know, in the games where we do go to the pen, we're so deep. It's we really like our chances when it becomes a game of our pen versus others. We just have committed guy after committed guy down there in the bullpen. So in terms of a collective identity, we want to play really great, clean team defense. Offensively, we want to grind at bats and be solid 1 through 9. We probably don't set our lineup in a traditional manner where we do expect damage from the first third, middle third, and back third. It's not one of these, oh, you're hot, so we'll hit you in the front of the order this week. We like to let guys settle in and own where they are in the box and live up to the expectations we have of that. And then in terms of pitching, they put up a lot of zeros, and they're competitive and they're aggressive. They work fast, tremendous at stopping the running game, and that's certainly partially on the pitchers. But when you have Bradley McCafferty behind the plate, it's a big advantage in stopping the other team's running game.
Yeah, and he's committed to Duke. I think you have 13 guys currently committed to college programs.
It's actually 14. We have 13 in the senior class, and then we have Bradley as a sophomore committed to Duke.
Yeah, that is unbelievable. And I would imagine that you've done a really good job of forming those relationships with college coaches, recruiters, and created opportunities for your guys to get seen. What are some of the things that you do within your program to help these guys get recruited?
And I think it would be pretty selfish of me to say we are exclusively doing that. I think part of our culture extends beyond 101 Willow Street, and it's not just Austin Prep. I give a lot of credit to their travel coaches, working closely with their travel coaches, constant check-ins, a really open relationship where we're talking at all times, working together, because for me, I don't care if it's Austin Prep that gets the offer or a travel program or a private instructor that gets the offer. Whatever helps the kid get to his final goal is what we all really need to be in this for. But yes, we work very hard for our guys. We are constantly on the phones, constantly hosting not only colleges but pro scouts on campus, and they're looking at our guys, whether it's area code games, Team USA. We have guys in the mix for all of that. So we do a lot of work behind the scenes, but it is a collective effort. It is not singularly me. In terms of why our guys get recruited in a time where high school is kind of getting towards the bottom of the barrel in terms of recruiting, I believe that we are still heavily recruited because of our model. And again, I can't take full responsibility to that because I have limitations of what I can do in out-of-season coaching. So I'm very thankful to our alums and our volunteer coaches that help us have a fall ball. We have 2 fall ball teams. So our varsity guys will play around 15 games with the championship. Midweek games, it's very much, a midweek game and then games on the weekend. So we're trying to set that up for college. And then our JV team played in fall ball league as well, and they'll play around 10 to 12 games. After that, there's a lot of training, a lot of weight room time. We have a testing day where all of our guys get their measurables collected twice a year. We provide that to college coaches. And I think when a college coach calls and I can give them all of that data, it's a pre-qualifier that those guys should be in the college equation in terms of they physically should be there, and from a talent perspective, they should be there. I think that's a big question mark in high school a lot of times, is how's this guy going to translate to the demands, the scheduling, the time management, the physicality, and competing against older players. I think we try to do our best in checking all those boxes to ensure our guys are ready for that. And, actions speak louder than words. I think if you look at our alums and where they go to school and the immediate impact they make, I think that the recipe is working. Our guys usually step in and they start very early in their career. They break school records very early in their career. Obviously Evan Blanco is kind of the poster child of that, of stepping in and being the ace at Virginia as a sophomore, but that he's just one of many guys playing a huge role. Bravo's down hitting cleanup for Duke, and Ernie Little went to Wesleyan and broke 3 records as a freshman, and then broke his own records as a sophomore. Matty Chattel steps in as a freshman, starting catcher at Merrimack, hitting in the middle of the order. Will Burns is up as a freshman at Maine, and it took him some time to break the lineup, but then he got in there and he made contributions right away. Jack Iannabelli at Stonehill has had a sizable role since he walked in the door, so there's just a lot of guys that step in ready to go, and I believe that's because of the format we create, where a lot of our guys will joke around and call it Austin Prep University, because we are trying to put them in an environment that they can step into college and be like, okay, I've done a version of this for the past 4, 5, 6 years. Like David Vanderzaan, he'll have done it for 7 years because he was at Austin since 6th grade. So I just think that's why we are one of the few high schools that's still heavily recruited and scouted.
Yeah, one of the other cool parts of your program is you're preparing guys or men and women for the next level and success outside of baseball. You brought a guest here today. Can you introduce him and kind of tell us what he's doing here, I guess, shadowing our podcast today?
Yeah, so Jared Hickey is here with us today, and he's one of our program leads of our baseball operations program. It's a program that we're very passionate about, and it's something that I really learned to value and put a priority on incorporating into our program in my time with USA Baseball. I've coached with USA Baseball probably close to 10 years in a variety of different capacities. And when I went down there and saw their model of how everyone needs to be the best at what they do. So clearly the players, it speaks for themselves. They target, premier coaches, Power 5, top 10 ranked national champions to lead the way, major leaguers. But then what people don't see is the athletic trainers. They're the best of the best. Even the full-time staff at USA, they have such a high bar that complements what you're trying to accomplish on the field, that was something I knew I had to incorporate at Austin. And we've had great success with that. So in 4 years of existence, we've had 5 baseball operations members move on to do baseball operations at both the Division I and professional level.
Wow, that's impressive. I wanted to ask about one of the things you talked about JV program, and another cool part of your program. You have 91 players that came out for the team. How do you attribute those types of numbers? It's not like a huge school that has 5,000 kids. How do you end up with that many aspiring baseball players in your program?
Yeah, thank you very much. And that means a lot, because obviously our varsity guys get a lot of attention, but we have 91 players in the program. They all have a home, and we have a varsity team, 3 JV teams, a middle school team, and then we have 25 kids taking part in the baseball operations program, which is like functioning a team within itself.
Right,
there's
yeah.
tremendous responsibility on those kids. So in essence, you have 91 players, 25 more student managers, so to speak. So it's a lot of moving parts, but I think in order for that to be successful, you have to buy into the culture, and you have to buy in of what we're trying to tell you is going to give you life success. We're a little bit old school in that, where, you have to earn your stripes, and there's a pathway for you. And we have a lot of guys on our JV team that would definitely start at most other high schools, but they're humble enough and they buy into the program enough to know they believe we have something special going on. And sometimes it takes time to get that opportunity to be the guy in a program that has had some success.
Yeah, your schedule this year, I think it was included, of the games on your schedule, 8 were against ISL foes. You still have a couple left in the final week. 5 against Central New England opponents. And those, like you said, all those teams are kind of playing in league championships this week. How would you size up? I guess we'll start with the ISL. I did a breakdown over the weekend, and the 8 starting pitchers are pretty incredible. A lot of D1 commits, or guys who are underclassmen who will probably be going D1. How do you size up that tournament if you were to handicap it?
Yeah, I mean, I have the utmost respect for the ISL, and I will have a lifetime loyalty to the ISL because they've been really good to us since we entered the NEPSAC. I'm very blessed that 2 head coaches within the ISL are former assistants of mine, so very blessed that we've maintained those relationships and they've assisted in our transition. But it's a great, great league, and it goes beyond baseball. It's beautiful campuses, high academic standards, and they play the game the right way. They're not just looking for statistics. They're looking to produce good young men out into the world and teach the game of life through baseball. So absolutely the highest amount of respect for the ISL, and forever grateful that many of them continue to schedule us.
Yeah. And then Central New England's another one that last year, or Central New England has actually had the number 1 team in New England. And that might be you guys this year if you finish out undefeated. But last year it was Worcester Academy. This year Deerfield's on top of that league. What do you see of the strength of that league that, is kind of leading to these number 1 teams in New England?
Yeah, I mean, there's great leadership for sure. And also tremendous schools similar to the ISL, which again is, I think that's a common denominator throughout NEPSAC, is you're going to have beautiful campuses, tremendous academic institutions, and a lot of full-time baseball coaches at the school. So you build different relationships and you have a different level of skin in the game when you're full-time at the school. At Austin, we're blessed our entire varsity staff is full-time at our school. So I know firsthand the value that brings to the program and the relationship building with the players. But yeah, highest amount of respect for those guys. I've had an opportunity to get to know personally many of those coaches. They've been great. I think Danny at Dexter has been very, very good to us and helping me navigate at all times. You know, his CM roots, I think he sees a bit of a reflection in his life experience and in what we're trying to do at Austin and what I'm trying to do as the baseball coach. And he's been a great asset for us, a great ally to help us navigate that. And, we've played them 2 years, so he'll always keep us on the schedule. Worcester Academy wants us on the schedule. We're playing Phillips twice this year, so very blessed that those schools. Exeter, we played twice last year, once this year, so just very, very, very thankful to those schools and their willingness to play us. We've built some really, really good relationships, and those are certainly the kind of schools that we want to build a relationship with.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned your facilities, some of the stuff that you've been able to do on campus because the quality of the facilities that you have, the field. How big of a perk is that, when you're recruiting for Austin Prep, and how nice is it to kind of be able to host those types of things like, area code game tryouts or things like that on your campus? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, we're very, very blessed. I think most people in New England that play baseball have probably made their way through Austin Prep, whether it's playing against us or their travel programs, because we do try to keep the field open to outside groups. We also try to be good, whether it was MIA members or NEPSAC members, where if you need the field, just reach out. We're always willing to help out, especially those schools that have been really good to us. We want to return the favor, and very often the field is the favor that they need. So we're very receptive to that, and hosting tournaments and hosting games. And early in the year when the natural surface schools are having a hard time getting on their field, they come over and use our field so they can, keep their pitching lined up and have consistency within their game schedule. So the physical space is absolutely a blessing. I'm forever grateful to the Board of Trustees, the leadership at Austin Prep, our head of school, and our athletic department for the investment they have made and the support they continue to show our program. We would not have nearly the success that we have without all of their contributions. But yeah, the physical space is one thing, and it's a blessing, but the environment, which it means a lot to me. Many of the teams that come in and play against us, how much they express how much they appreciate being there, that's all credited to the students that take part in the baseball operations program. And we have a full-time teacher that actually leads that as well, Michelle Flaherty, and their work throughout the entire off-season and throughout the season is really what creates that environment. And for a high school baseball team to have like a football environment and packed stands all the time, lights, sound, music, it's a really, really special place to play every day. And it's we do it every single day. It's a Tuesday for us, but not a Tuesday goes by that I'm not like, wow, this is a very cool environment. Not one single game. It's so present that you can't get beyond, you can never get like satisfied with it. It always feels like such a blessing.
Netting Professionals is proud to be the official netting partner of the Cape Cod League and the New England Collegiate Baseball League. Netting Professionals is in the sports business of improving athletic programs one facility at a time. Netting Professionals designs, fabricates, and installs custom netting, wall padding, windscreen, batting practice equipment, and much more for high schools, colleges, commercial facilities, and stadiums throughout the United States, while providing high-quality products and great service to numerous baseball programs throughout the New England area. To learn more and to speak to a Netting Professionals representative today, visit them at nettingpros.com. Remember, when it comes to netting, it's Netting Professionals.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Attention coaches, need baseball bat bags that last? Meet No Errors, crafting premium quality bags since 2004, the top choice for durability. Choose from stock bags for quick delivery or our semi-custom program for personalized logos in just 10 to 12 days. For a unique team look, try our full custom program. Let No Errors design your next team bags. Visit noerrors.com. That's no-errors.com for details. No Errors, where durability meets style.
Looking to keep up with all the latest news and information on New England baseball? New England Baseball Journal and BaseballJournal.com are the premier resources for information and inspiration on the New England baseball scene. Have every issue of New England Baseball Journal, the magazine, delivered to your home or office. And don't forget to stay in the game every day with a digital subscription to BaseballJournal.com to receive baseball coverage on clubs, college commits, prep and high school, Division 1, 2, and 3 colleges, showcases, rankings, and much more. Get in the game and behind the scenes now by going to BaseballJournal.com. Just click on the subscribe button and start the subscription that is right for you today. New England Baseball Journal is a Seamans Media publication. Seamans Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.
We talked a little bit before this about Logan Bravo, who's, you said, cleanup hitter at Duke. He's having a great career. He's obviously going to have professional success, whatever he decides to do with degrees at Harvard and Duke. But you had said, he's the first guy you thought of with the pandemic situation, with the lost years and extra eligibility, the transfer portal kind of taken off. What is your message to your guys who, kind of maybe struggling to get those offers or to get those opportunities at the college level? Obviously, a lot of your guys have them, but maybe that process takes a little longer now. They don't get the offers as soon as they did. What do you tell your guys that are getting frustrated with that process? Yeah,
and to your point, we're very lucky. There's not a lot of frustration on campus. 13 out of 15 committed, underclassmen. The phone is ringing every day on a lot of our underclassmen. Quite frankly, the phone rings on bench guys for us. We have guys playing college baseball that barely got innings for us. And I think that's a testament to their character, that they were willing to say, hey, I want to train in this every day. I want to be coached in this every day. And I know there's probably going to be a playing time sacrifice in this, but I will be more prepared and ready to succeed in college, which I think, that's kind of the chicken and the egg, right? Mm-hmm. They're willing to make that sacrifice. So the frustrations you're talking about that many high school programs are facing, it's not in our world as much, because I think we are still heavily recruited. And as mentioned before, colleges know if you bring in an Austin Prep guy, he's ready to contribute right away. Yeah. But there's a lot of distractions beyond the pandemic and transfer portal. And we just really try to tell our guys, hey, be present at all times. You had mentioned the winning streak and undefeated. And of course we're conscientious of that, but we have to go day to day, game by game, practice by practice. And we truly do that. We have a very high standard for what we want to accomplish in practice. And if we don't have a good practice, we're going to talk about it and say, how can we be better? We could win a game, but if we feel we didn't beat our standard, we're going to talk about it and address it and try to continue to chase our bar. Mm-hmm. We obviously have tremendous opponents with uber talented guys, future pros, no doubt. We see that every week, but that's not really our primary focus. Our primary focus is competing against ourselves. So by keeping our guys in the moment, I think some of those distractions of running to your social media account to be proud and blessed starts to fade away a little bit. Yeah. Especially when you see how many guys go to college out of our place. And as mentioned, some of them don't have sizable roles for us, that our guys just really have a buy-in of when I do get my opportunity, or when when college recruiters, pro scouts are at our practices, at our scrimmages, at our fall ball inter-squads, they know they're going to get a high level of exposure and they'll get noticed, in that there is a priority in bringing in Austin Prep guys just because of their readiness for college baseball on and off the field.
Yeah, and their acceptance of roles. A lot of times that trajectory is, I was the, number 3 hitter and pitcher for my high school team, and now I have to find, how do I fit in on this college team, and I've never not been the best guy. So the guys coming from Austin Prep already had to kind of slide into roles at the high school level to figure out, how am I going to contribute to this team? It's not going to be, batting third and hitting 10 home runs a year.
Well said. You're spot on with that. And again, it's something we're trying to do to prepare them not only for baseball, but for life. We don't want our grads to come out thinking, okay, I've graduated college, where's my corner office? I'm ready to be CEO. We want them to embrace the grind, be where they are, and have long-term goals, but accomplish those one step at a time. Mm-hmm. You're not going to have a lot of fulfillment or success if you're constantly looking into the future, because you're not embracing and appreciating what you have in the present. So that's something our guys are really good about, their mental maturity with that, both academically and athletically. That's something that I'm very proud of our guys, and sometimes get overlooked, is we talk about a Logan Bravo who was at Harvard and now at Duke, and Evan Blanco who's at Virginia, and it's like, wow, he's the sophomore ace of Virginia. It's like, yeah, well, he was also all academic team, ACC all academic team. So our guys focus both on and off the field, and certainly academically. Our guys are going to really good schools, and they're successful there. They're ready for the demands of academics, the demands of life, and the demands of athletics.
How has the profile of the Austin Prep baseball recruit changed, the guys that you're bringing into Austin Prep, over the last 2 years after making that transition from MIA to NEPSAC?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, because it is clearly present in the admissions process. So as we sit there and we look at who's applying or who we're bringing in, back in the day, it was a lot of comps with other Catholic schools. Oh, this kid's looking at Fenwick. He's looking at St. Mary's, Malden Catholic, CM, fill in the blank. We really are not seeing that at all anymore. It's okay, we're looking at you, Phillips, Dexter, Govs. That's pretty much all that's coming at Belmont Hill. Those are coming up all the time in the admissions process. Yeah. And I want it that way, because I think that speaks to the academic and athletic focus we have. And I want kids to know, if you come to Austin Prep, there are high standards. And when we meet with families, prospective families and athletes, we put that right out there. It's like, yes, we're going to get you whatever your goal is, whether that's D1, pro ball, like we're going to put you in a position to chase down that goal. But you need to do everything off the field. And it's very funny. I was meeting with a 2-sport athlete and another coach within our athletic program. And after the meeting, the coach joked, he's like, what is that? The non-recruit speech right there? Because that's a pretty high standard you lay out. And I think a lot of guys are going to walk away from that because they're nervous. And I said, right, that's a pre-qualifier. Like, you have to have this mindset to fit within our culture. So I'm not going to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. It's like, this is what you're signing up for. You have to have tremendous character. You have to conduct yourselves within the community the right way. You have to be engaged in the community. We do not want to be the Austin Prep baseball team, this island that is at Austin Prep. We want to be part of a school. And beyond that, we want to be part of a league. So we want to be part of the NEPSAC. We want to be engaged, active members that are positively contributing within that. I have high academic standards, high character standards, and they're relentless. There's no off button. And I'm compassionate towards my guys because they know my role other than head baseball coach is associate head of school. And so I know almost before they know if there's something they need to come in and talk to me about and take ownership of or get back on track. So it's a pressure cooker, but I think that also prepares them for college baseball and for life because they know there's a high standard and I'm relentless in ensuring we are meeting that standard every single day.
Yeah, you mentioned it's a year-round grind. But when we spoke for the cover story, I remember you saying the rules about off-season training, and you have a fall ball program and strength training program, weren't 100% clear to you, I guess, when you made that transition. What are the rules that you guys are following in terms of off-season programs?
So we have always been a very letter of the law program, and for anyone that knows me, that's just who I am as well, because I'm never going to compromise any success we've had that anybody thinks we may have been in a gray area or compromise a rule. That's just not who I am. That's part of my responsibility as head coach is to safeguard that. So when we were entering the NEPSAC, I think especially, which I didn't really understand as much as I do now, spring sports are a very different entity within NEPSAC than fall and winter sports. So as we were getting feedback in associate members versus full members. So we play NEPSAC schools that right on their website, it's like, we are a full-time academy model. Mm-hmm. You get coached year round. It's right there. It's not hidden. Because I guess at the end of the day, what are you going to do? Get suspended from the tournament that doesn't exist?
Right, yeah.
So I think schools try to make the best decision in terms of what's right for them and whether they're a full member or an associate member. We are doing letter of the law, which is we have no out-of-season contact. We do have contact in the summertime, but unfortunately as a baseball coach, that doesn't provide me a whole lot because many of our guys go back to their travel team as they should, and they're traveling the country all summer. So we're not going to burn them out. We're not going to have requirements over the summer. So that rule does not really help me the way it probably does other sports. But yeah, we are absolutely letter of the law. The moment the peg date starts for us that we have access to them, we go full tilt. We actually probably go a bit beyond in terms of our own internal rules and contact time and mandated days off that we self-impose at Austin Prep. But yeah, we're definitely a letter of the law, and I think everybody's starting to realize that that's probably got to be looked at a little bit further to prepare these students for the demands of college and to be able to stand out amongst the transfer portal. They need to be high school kids, 16, 17, 18, 19, that are separating themselves from men that with a proven college record. Right. So in order to do that, we have to put them in the best position to combat that. And I think it's very hard to do that, saying you got to prepare these guys in 2.5 months. Their entire experience is 2.5 months to prepare them for those demands. I think that's a tall task.
For sure. Yeah, and it's good to have I like the idea of the high school coach kind of being the CEO in terms of, off-season training and just to make sure you're avoiding injuries and you're keeping track of how many pitches they're throwing and all that type of stuff.
I totally agree with you, and I think that is very important. And I think the NEPSAC is primed for that because many of the coaches are full-time at the school.
Yeah.
So they have so much skin in the game, they're going to do things the right way. I don't think you're going to find many coaches within the NEPSAC that would take advantage of out-of-season contact because of the academic standards. Yeah. And they get it. They're full-time educators. So they understand the importance of the balance between athletics and academics. But when you have limited contact, especially in a spring sport, let's call it 2.5, 3 months, that is not balanced. Right. That is unbalanced. And I think that is what needs to be addressed in the future. That's best for NEPSAC and certainly best for these student athletes looking to take their careers to the next level.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right. Are you up for a 3 up, 3 down segment? It's just kind of a general interest, fun baseball question type stuff?
Absolutely.
All right. Good deal. Let me introduce you to our producer, David Yaz.
Thanks, Dan. Yes, time for another exciting edition of 3 Up, 3 Down.
3 up, 3 down.
3 questions for our panelists, for both the coach and Dan, and we will start. I'm going to start by telling you a story that you probably know. In the 1988 World Series, which featured which 2 teams? Come on.
Dodgers and who did Kirk Gibson hit that home run against?
Oh, for Christ's sakes.
A's?
Thank you. The A's and Dennis Eckersley. And it is on that home run that I am going to spin this following yarn. Before the World Series started, longtime Dodger scout Mel Didier told his left-handed hitters that if Dennis Eckersley, the overwhelmingly devastating closer for the A's, if he gets you at the count of 3-2, and there's a runner at second base or third base, and it's the tying or winning run, he will throw you a backdoor slider on 3 and 2. Sure enough, Mike Davis, who was aboard after a walk, stole second base. The count went to 3 and 2. Gibson got exactly the pitch he was looking for and hit a historic home run. My question to you, gentlemen, is have you ever gotten coaching advice or given coaching advice that worked out quite that well? And if not, just the best coaching advice you've ever gotten. And Dan, despite the confused look on your face, I'm going to make you answer this question first.
It worked out that well. I can't imagine that, but
probably hard to imagine.
I'm trying to think. So one time when I was in Little League, I hit a ball down the line that I thought was a foul ball. And so before I got to first base, I tailed off on the right side of the bag and then just circled around and came back to home plate. And they threw the ball to first base, after they got rounded it up in right field, threw it to first, and then I was out. And I remember the umpire after that game was like, from now on, anytime you hit a ball, anywhere on the field and you're not 100% sure if it's fair or foul, run through first base, make the right turn. And then he's like, there's no out of the base paths once you make that right turn. And so he said, from now on, never, even if you're just like, you're pretty sure it's a foul ball, but not 100% sure, run through the first base bag. So I looked kind of funny doing it sometimes. I foul it out of play and still run through first base just to be sure. But that was good advice.
That's pretty good advice. You don't hear that a lot often. Yeah. Coach, how about you?
I certainly would never put myself in the same breath as Kirk Gibson's home run, one of the most legendary big league moments in the history of baseball. But I'd be lying if I said we didn't have advanced scouting and looking at tendencies. We try to find those, whether that's through our professional network and coaches talking shop. But in game, if you're paying attention, you can usually find tendencies in a lot of different areas of the game and certainly take advantage of that. And I think that's something we try to do on a day-to-day basis.
Do you ever have a moment where a player comes to you and say, Coach, I can't believe it. You told me he was going to throw a curveball, and he threw a curveball.
Humbly, that happens very, very, very frequently.
Really? Okay.
And I think that's part of the buy-in of our guys, and I appreciate that. We are, I would like to consider a very heady team, and, we do a lot of homework leading into games and the seasons, and we definitely have a brand of baseball we believe in, and whether it's pre-pitch, telling a guy, hey, you're going to have to make a play right here, and then all of a sudden the ball's hit to him and they make a play, and then immediately their eyes are back in the dugout like, how did you know that was going to happen? And it's like, oh, this isn't my first rodeo, bud. But if you pay attention, you'll be doing the same thing in the future when you're coaching.
All right. I want to play for this guy. Let's move on to question number 2. You'll probably both recall the first baseman John Olerud, who played for the Blue Jays and a couple other teams. A Sports Illustrated story once described his swing as a swing so sweet it should be poured on pancakes. My question is this. Who's the swing that you admired the most? Of all the baseball players, Major League Baseball and wherever, I guess, who's the sweetest swing you've ever seen? Coach, how about you first?
I think 99% of the baseball community would default to Ken Griffey Jr. It's
not surprised.
It is certainly one of the sweetest swings, and for whatever reason, I think we would all prescribe to that lefty stroke. Is certainly it just has something about it. A left-handed swing always seems a bit prettier than even the most finely tuned right-handed swings. But I think it would be a disservice to not put Tony Gwynn in that conversation. His bat-to-ball skills are in a league of its own. They needed to create a new league for him because he was that special with his bat-to-ball skills.
Well, he was so fundamentally sound. He didn't have the most memorable swing because it was perfect. It was a perfect swing, or close as you can get to a perfect swing. But I like the Griffey answer as well. When I used to watch Griffey and just see him dig in and do his warm-up swings, I just assumed he was going to hit a double off the wall. That's it. Just look, I was shocked when he didn't. Dan, how about you? Anybody else? Sweet swingers?
Well, yeah, I would say Griffey Jr. Manny had a really nice swing. The one of the guys that comes to mind is Chipper Jones, and he was a great switch hitter. I think he's the only switch hitter to ever hit 300 from both sides of the plate, or maybe like 150 home runs from each side of the plate. But I remember when Charlie Manuel was the manager of the Phillies, whenever somebody was like, hey, is this pitcher ready for the big leagues? He's like, oh, we'll know when they face Chipper Jones because he's always the toughest out for us. So, yeah, I would say Chipper Jones.
Chipper Jones. Good one. Final question for 3 up, 3 down. I was trying to think of what announcer I was imitating there, but the Braves, the guy who talks like that, Chipper Jones. No, I can't think of who it is.
It's Skip Carey.
Oh, yeah, Skip Carey. Yeah. Thank you, Dan. That's why you're here, Mr. Baseball. Final question, and I will invoke the great Earl Weaver, the late, great Baltimore Orioles coach, who said the following about the postseason. A manager has to convince his hitters that they have to get on base for the next guy and that no player can do it by himself. Sometimes that isn't easy. In the playoffs, you can get into trouble because everybody wants to be a hero. So my question to you gentlemen is, give me an example of why or how, or both, the postseason is just different. And this could be at any level. So you get to the postseason and things are different. How can you tell? Dan, why don't you take that one first?
It's always, to me, how quick you give the hook to a starting pitcher that gets in trouble. You know, sometimes in the postseason, it's the 2 outs in the first inning, and this guy's like having trouble with his command, and the manager's like, all right, he's done. You know, we're going with somebody else. You don't see a lot of that in the regular season, but bullpens, you know, what do they say about all
hands on deck?
All hands on deck. That's
right.
what it is. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're right. That is one of the fun parts of the postseason. I don't want to steal Coach. You know what? I'm going to let the coach answer before I say what I'm about to say. No spoilers here. Coach, your thoughts or descriptions or whatever you'd like to say about how the postseason is different.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely different. And I think it's a 2-part answer to that. I mean, first and foremost, it's the culmination of a lot, right? You've played a lot of games and won a lot of games to get to that point. But when you mine that down even further, you think about how many swings you take in the cage, in the off season, how many weights you push, how many balls you throw for it to come down to one play. And, you know, let's say it's a pickoff. How many reps did you do to execute that one pickoff? How many swings did you take in the cage to hit that walk-off? How many, you know, pitches did you throw in the bullpen, and how much long toss did you throw to execute that one pitch on the outside black to freeze him and walk off a champion? And I think, unfortunately, when you get to a playoff situation, a championship situation, you think you will forever be judged in the scoreboard at the end of that game. So part 2 of my answer is, I think there needs to be a focus on the mental side of it going into that. And, you know, we've been blessed to be in a lot of big games and championship games and win championships. And we always say, look, this scoreboard is going to reflect 2 hours of our season. Like, let's not put pressure on 2 hours. Let's believe in the 2,000 hours leading into this moment. And even saying that and giving that perspective, you need to coach players of how to slow themselves down. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, we have very high standards practices, and we're very accountable for what we do well and what we do poorly. And I am the pressure cooker guy, right? I have to set a standard for every individual and for the team and be relentless in holding each individual and the team to that standard. So you're going to have me all over you at times, in good ways and bad ways. And I always just tell our guys, do not let me break you. When I'm on you at your worst, don't let me break you. And I need a coach at that point, right? So I say, well, how are you going to slow this thing down? Control your breathing. You know, we talk about box breathing a lot. To slow things down, slow your mind down, and be ready to perform when the stakes are at the highest. And I think sometimes when teams really pucker up, it's because they haven't put in that same amount of time they did to hitting, throwing, base running in terms of, you know, being able to slow yourself down. And, you know, a term we use is we're unapologetically confident. We work really hard on a year-round basis. And I think we deserve to be a confident team filled with confident players. Because when you've put the time in and worked that hard and haven't cut any corners and made major sacrifices on and off the field, you've earned the right to be unapologetically confident.
Well, it's interesting that you say you can sort of, it's almost like you're saying, don't let me put words in your mouth, but that you can practice performing under pressure. If you've done enough reps, if you've done enough reps at anything, you get better at it. And to have that ability, I always marvel at it. Sometimes, you know, 9th inning, 3-2, sometimes I say to myself, God, I'm glad I'm not the batter. Because you know, it's, like you say, it all comes down to one moment, and you need to not think about the one thing that you can't stop thinking about, which is, if I fail, I've just let us down in this huge moment. But that's very well put, Coach. I was going to say, Dan, the footnote to what you said about the use of pitchers is, it's always fun when your like ace starting pitcher comes on in relief in the postseason. I'm reminded of the game, and it was a Griffey game. It was the game Griffey won with that memorable jaunt around the base pass, scoring from first on an Edgar Martinez double. And in that game, I'm pretty sure the Mariners earlier had brought in Randy Johnson, and just the crowd went absolutely nuts when he comes out of the bullpen. And then the Yankees bring in Jack McDowell. Their race didn't work out as well for them.
Or it's even better when the pitcher has to make that run from the dugout down to the bullpen, and you're like, oh my God, Roger Clemens is in the bullpen.
And that's cool, because sometimes if you're at the stadium, like, you're the only one that sees it. That'll happen during the commercial if you're watching on TV, but the crowd just lights up. Yeah. Very good. You've both done very well in 3 up, 3 down. Next time you're here, Coach, we'll have some peanuts and Cracker Jacks as a parting gift. I'm all out right now, but thank you very much. Dan, back to you to close things up.
All right. Thank you to Austin Prep coach John Pollard for joining us on the BasePath podcast in studio. Rate, review, subscribe to the BasePath podcast on your preferred platform. Thanks to our producer, David Yaz. The BasePath podcast is a Seamans Media production.